What is good, everybody? Tunde again from Ceasar Graphix. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and remember to ring that bell so you will be notified when I post my tutorials. Welcome to my how to use background series. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make food poster and the things to consider before jumping into the project. So without any further ado, let's jump into today's tutorial. Before working on any design project, there are some basic things you need to consider. I have some of them here on my slide. So the first one is define the problem you have been given. So here you need to ask the client some questions. Some of them are, why this project? Why do you want us to come up with a design for you? You hear some of them say, I want people to be able to know my products. I want to get more customers. So if, for example, the client say, I want people to know my product. So what you now need to do is to make that product more obvious. All right. Then on my next slide, it says, know the material, digest it fully, at the very least, read it. So here you need to now understand the way the type of design you're about to work on work. Okay, so for example, if I'm asked to work on a design for a bank, what I'll do is I'll go and then search for banks designs. So I'll put those designs next to each other and see the feel that they use. Now, I'm not going to now use the same format or the same layout that I got from maybe the internet or from other banks. What I just need to pick from the design is to just understand the feel, the way their design always look, and then I will put that on my project. And then the next slide says abstract the main point. So after getting the purpose of the design, that purpose should look dynamic. It should be the first thing that people will see before they see every other information on the design. Like make it clearer, abstract the main point, so it's important to the reader. It's clearer and it is visually arresting. A message that doesn't first stop readers won't be read. And then I put it here again here that successful design describes the content fully and as simply as possible. What you now need to do is to find a way to make the design simple enough to be able to catch people's attention. Simple design catch people's attention more than when it's very busy. So as you're working on the project, be having it in your mind that you need to make the design simple. So anything that is not adding to the project, don't put it. Because once you put it on your project, it's going to take away from the design. It's going to make the design look too busy. Allow room for white space. Okay, now the job of white space on your project is to make people or your audience see the focal point on your project easily. White space allow room for simple designs. White space will make people be able to see every content, every element on your design easily. But when you don't give room for white space, people will find it difficult to read the content on your design. In fact, the design will piss them off. It won't even make them want to stay and look at the design. As designers, we need to always educate our clients. The reason why they call us to solve their design goal is because they trust us. When a client gives you a brief, don't put everything about the organization or the client on your one-page poster. This is not different from when you tell someone you just met everything about you the first day. Allow room for suspense. Abstracting one or two items is enough to catch the viewer's attention. Then you can now put the other items that the organization or the client sell under it. Yes, I know clients always say, I want people to see all the things that I sell on my artwork. So this is why you need to do a mock-up of your version and the client's version. Send both designs to the client. Most times they like the one that people can easily see their contact details and their address. So have fun. So I'm going to be using a food poster to teach you what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so this is the brief that we're going to be using to come up with the design. So this is coming from a company called Never Foods. So these are the items that the organization sell. Our job as designer is to find a way to make the design simple enough that it will catch people's attention. So among the list of items here, I'm going to pick 3. So among those 3, I'm going to work with just one. On this list, I picked donuts, pizza, and burger. Now, if I use donuts, donut may not really make the mouth watery, and it's going to look too small, except if I make it 5 or 10, or make it look in form of a rainfall on the project. And doing that will make the design busy, because the information I'm going to be putting on this project is too much for me to make the background busy. I like the pizza image, but the problem I have with the pizza is that it's going to take space, because the wood behind the pizza will not allow me to be able to put my information the way I think it will work. I'm going to go with the burger because the picture of the burger alone is mouth watering. All right. It will even give me the room to be able to place the other content on the project. So we are going with burger, and I'm going to be using 2 applications to achieve this project. I'm going to be using Photoshop and Illustrator. So let's go straight to the application and start work on the project. Because this is going to be on social media, we are going to make our frame size 700 by 700. So I'm going to hit 700 here. I'll make this 700, and this will be 72, and my color mode is going to be RGB. Okay, and I'm going to call this food poster. Okay, so I'm going to leave every other settings the way they are, and I'm going to hit create. So the next thing I'm going to do is to change the color of my foreground to red. So I'm going to use this shade of red. You can always copy the code here, and I'll hit OK. So I'm going to hold Alt backspace to fill the layer with the color of my foreground. And the next thing I'm going to do now is to create a new layer, and I'll call this glow, and I'll select the brush tool, come here and use yellow color, and I'm going to hit OK. So I'm just going to click once, then I'll use the free transform to scale this to the size that I want, which is this. I'm going to reduce the opacity a little bit. Alright, and I'm going to make a new layer again. I'm going to call this one yellow glow. Alright, yellow G is fine, and I'll come here and just increase the brightness of the yellow, and I'm going to click once again, and I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger, just like so. So there's an effect I want to do now that will make it look like the focal point is coming out from the center of my frame. So I need to go to Illustrator to do that. So I'll go to Illustrator now, and I'll draw a rectangle with the rectangle tool, like so. So I'm going to use the add anchor point tool, which is this. So if you can't find it, just simply click on the pen tool, and then you see the add anchor point tool as your sub tool. So I need to zoom in. I'm just going to click to add a point, and I'll select the delete anchor point tool to take out some of the points, like so. So I'm going to zoom out, and alright, so I'm going to use the rotate tool, and I'll click here to position my anchor points to the tip of the triangle, and I'm just going to click with shift hold down, and I'll hold on Alt to make a copy of it, and I'll release my hand from the mouse. Then I'm going to use Control D on my keyboard to repeat the last move that I made. So we have this, alright, and I'm going to select the shapes. I'll remove the outline color. So I'm going to copy this with Control C on my keyboard, and I'll go straight to Photoshop, and I'll paste it. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to bring out the free transform again, and I'll scale this down a little. Alright, and I'll right click and rasterize this. Okay, and I'll go to filter, blur, and I'll select Gaussian blur, like so. So I'm just going to make this go down like so. Alright, and I'll go to filter again, I'll select blur and select radial blur. So this time I'm going to check the zoom option and I'll change this to best and I'll move this up and hit OK. Alright, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger with the free transform. Alright, and I'm going to make a copy of this and I'll bring out the free transform again. I'll hold on shift and I'll rotate this. But let's just do without shift for now. Right, and I'm gonna hold on alt and scale this down like so. Okay, so I'm going to reduce the opacity just like so, and I'll go to filter, blur, and I'll select Gaussian blur. Alright, and I'll shift select the two layers and I'll scale this big like so. Alright, so we need to reduce the opacity of this. Alright, we'll make this go down and I'll put the two layers in a group just like so. All these lines, okay, and I'll put this in a group also and I'll call this glow. So I'm going to add a layer mask to this and I'll select the brush tool. I'm just going to use that to take out some part of the line layer like so. Alright, now the reason why I'm having this type of brush effect on the layer is because my transfer option is checked, and it's because I'm using a graphics tablet. So if you don't have a graphics tablet, simply reduce the flow to something around let's say 30, okay, and then you get the same effect. So I'm just going to move this here like so, and the next thing I'm going to do is to bring in the burger image. So I'm going to drag that and drop here like so, and I'm going to scale this down. Alright, now remember what I said previously, that you need to abstract the focal point, and that's the reason why we decided to do all this effect behind it. So I'm just going to rotate this so as to make it look more interesting. Alright, so I actually want it to look like the burger is coming out from the effect behind it. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hold down control to create a marquee of the burger layer, and I'll create a new layer. Then I'm going to call this lights burger. Alright, so I'm going to make it BG. Alright, and I'll fill it with the color of my foreground. So I'm going to hold on Alt backspace and I'm going to hit Ctrl D on my keyboard to deselect the layer, and I'm going to go to filter, blur, and I'll click on Gaussian blur. So I'm going to just increase the blur like so. Alright, so this is good. Okay, so I'm going to go straight to the line layer, and I think I need to just scale this a little bit more, just like so. Alright, so I'll make this one a little bit bigger. Alright, so in order to create more glow effect behind it, so I'm going to create a new group folder, and I'm going to call this lights. Okay, and I'll make a copy of this, then I'll scale this down a little bit, and I'll change the blend mode of that group folder to let's say screen, and I'll drag this and drop in here so as to give it more glow effect. And I'm going to make this more brighter, so I'm going to change it to have a little bit of white color. So I'm going to hit Ctrl L on my keyboard to bring out the level adjustment, and I'm going to just make this go brighter like so, right? And this is the before and this is the after. Okay, so now you see it's beginning to make sense. And the next thing I'm going to do again is to add some dot effect. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this dots. Okay, and I'll hit OK. Okay, so I'm going to select the brush tool, and I'm going to select this type of hard brush, turn off the transfer option, then go to the shape dynamic, and I'm gonna move the size jitter to 86 like this, and my minimum diameter should be 0. My angle jitter should be 58 is fine, roundness is okay, and I'll go back to the brush tip and add more space between them. So if I go back to the shape dynamic now, all right, and I move the minimum diameter up, I want you to see what's going to happen here. And the work of the minimum diameter is to help me with when I'm applying the brush, I'll have different sizes of the brush tip. So if I increase it now, you see I'm beginning to have the same tip for my brush, but I don't want that. I actually want it to have different tips. So I'm going to move this down. Now you see I have this tiny tip here, I have this one next to it, and I have this. And then for the angle jitter will help me with the rotation of the tip. So if I go to the brush tip now and I press this down like so. All right, let me move this down like so. Now you see it's beginning to look like an egg shape. So if I go to the shape dynamic now and I move the angle jitter, see what's going to happen to my brush. So I'm having different angle of the brush tip. So I'm going to just leave it as 54 like so. So I'm going to reduce the size of my brush a little, and I'm just going to click like so. Click again. Now you see I'm beginning to have different size and rotation for my brush like so, different angle. All right, like so. Okay, then I'll make a new layer again. I'll call this red dots. Okay, and I'll switch to red, and I need to make the red a little bit different like so. Okay, and I'm just gonna click again, click, click like so. Okay, this is good. So I'll change the blend mode to color dodge, and I'll do the same thing for this. Make a color dodge like so. All right, and the next thing we now need to do is to add the zoom effect so as to make it look like it's actually coming out from the center of the frame of the project. So I'm going to go to filter, blur, and I'll select radial blur. All right, and this time I'm not going to use this amount. I'm just going to move this down because I don't want it to not make my dots visible. So I'm going to hit OK. Now this is good. So I'm going to apply the same effect to the red. So I'm going to go to blur again, and I'll select radial blur, and this time I'm just going to use something around, let's say 6. I'll hit OK. Now you see we have this. So so the next thing I'm going to do this time is I'm going to make a copy of this layer, and I'm going to change this to color dodge. All right, and I'm going to delete this, and I'll make a new layer. I'll put the layer inside the group like so. All right, then I'm going to select the brush tool, and I'll make sure I change my brush back to the soft round brush. Take out the spacing, close, turn off the shape dynamic. Okay, so I need to turn on the transfer option. So I'm just gonna apply this. So anytime you see me use the transfer option, just know that you are supposed to change your flow. All right. So I'm just going to note this here. That's for the people without the Graphix tablets. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to add the vignette. So the advantage of the vignette is to make people's attention to be on the burger. So I'm going to create a curve adjustment, and I'm just going to move this down like so. All right. And I'm going to hit the Control I on my keyboard to revise the selection. I'm going to select the brush tool and increase the size of my brush. And I'm just going to I'm going to switch this to white. And I'm just going to brush to zoom out. So I'm just going to brush to add this back to the scene like so. So let's take out the curve adjustment from this side. Object, just like so, right? So we can even reduce the light, the dots layer just a little, like so. Shouldn't make that visible. Cool. Right, and I'm gonna add another curve again. And this one should go down a little bit, and this should be behind the burger. All right, and just gonna push this up a little bit, push this down like so, just like so. Okay, so the next thing we're going to make abstract again is going to be the caption. So I'm going to go to Illustrator to do that. We don't need this anymore. Okay, so I'm going to hit the delete key on my keyboard and I'm going to give this a title, right? So I'm going to call this tasty. All right, so I'll make a copy of this. I'll call this burger. Right. So what we now need to do now is to look for a font that have that fat look. Because if you look at the image of the burger, it looks bulky. So we need to look for a font that have that feel. So I'm gonna go to my font option here and let's see if I have a font that is closer to it. Let's see this now. No. No. Let's see if I have a font that is closer to it. Yeah, this is good. So I'm going to use the same font here. So it's called Hooper, right? Yeah, this is it. So I'm going to position here. So like I said previously, so we now need to make the focal point, the caption. So we need to make the caption abstract. I need to move this close to the burger and I'm going to select the touch type tool and I'm going to just use that to play with the type. So I'm going to move this down, position this here, position this here like so, make it bigger. All right. So when you're doing this, you have to be very careful not to make them touch each other because when you make the type close to each other, that the types are touching each other, it may affect the look of the font. So make sure you avoid that. So I'm just going to rotate this because the tail of my S is touching the letter A. So I'm just going to move this like this. I'm going to rotate it, excuse me, and I'm going to position this here like so. I'm just going to make it bigger. I'll put this here and let's reduce the size of the letter A a little bit and this should move close to this place like so. Right, this is not bad. Just move it up a little bit and I'm gonna make this bigger. This should be close to the S like so, and for the Y I'm gonna move the Y. I'm gonna make it smaller. This should be here. So for the burger I'm gonna move that up and move this here like so. You should go down, all right, and I'll move it up. I'll move this one up also, right, and I'm gonna scale this down. I'll move it up like so. Let's reduce it a little bit. Move it here. Reduce this a little bit. Okay, so it's good. So my G needs to be bigger. I'm gonna position this here. It's like so. I'll move this down. This here. Push this down. Right, and push this down like so. Move this down like so, and this should go up. Right. So this needs to go down a little. Something like this. gonna move this up, move this down, and scale this down, just like so. Okay, so I think this is fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to object and click on expand, and I'll hit OK. Then I'll weld the the type together, and I'm going to go to objects, envelope, distort, and I'm going to select make warp, and I'm going to use the arc option here, and I just want to make it curve a little, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so this is fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'll go straight to Photoshop and I'll paste it. So because I want to be able to change the color of my type on Photoshop, I'm just going to hit OK. So I'll move this up. It should be what it is. Yeah, and scale this down like so, and position this somewhere here. Now notice it's behind the burger, all right, and I'm still making sure that people can still see the shape of my G, because if I move it down to about this point, people may find it difficult to know if it's G or not. So I'm just going to move it here so as to help my viewers. So I'm going to move this here. This is good. So I'm going to change the color with my shape tool. So I'm going to come here and change the color to this shade, yellow. Let's see. So I need to use another shade of yellow. This here, like so. Okay. Okay, this is good. Let's just make it a little bit brighter. Move this up a little. Hit okay. Yeah, this is good. So what I'm going to do is to change the color of my stroke to this shade of red, and I'm going to increase the size. Okay, so we need to change the position of our stroke. So I'm going to click here and change the alignment to outside, and I'm going to increase the size like so. And we still need to change the color of the red to something more brighter. All right, so I'm gonna make a copy of this, and I'm gonna change the color of this to red, and this one here needs to go out a little bit. Right, and I'm gonna make a copy of this again, and this should be behind the one with the red color. And I'm going to go to the shape tool again. I'll change this to black, and I'll increase this stroke width to something bigger, like so. All right, something bigger, like so. And I'm just going to push this down. Okay, this is good. So I'm going to put the caption in a folder, in a group. So I'm going to hit Ctrl G on my keyboard and call this caption. Alright, so I'm going to move this down like so, and this should be here, just like so. Okay, so I think I still need to reduce the stroke of this. So I'm going to go to my shape tool and just push this down. And for this one here, still need to move this up once, like so. And yeah, I think this is good. I'm going to draw a shape where I'm going to put my contact details. So this should be here, and I'm going to change the color of this to red. Okay, but I need something more brighter. I hit OK. I'm gonna copy the phone number. I'm gonna paste this here. So my font color should be white. So the font I'm using here is called the Marriott Pro. Push this down from here. Scale this with the free transform. I'm never gonna add space. I'm gonna close the space between them, like so. And I'll scale this big, like so. And I'll copy the text. This should go down. And I'll paste this. So it shouldn't be this because people already know that when they see the phone number, they are to call. So there's no need for you repeating it again. So I'm just going to move this down because the goal is to make sure the project is simple enough for people to catch the message. So I'm gonna move this out a little bit and I'm gonna rotate this. I'm gonna move this down. So alright, this is good. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is to now add my text. So I'm just gonna copy this. Okay, and I'm gonna draw a text frame and I'll paste the text inside the text frame. Hit the Control A on my keyboard and centralize this. And I'm gonna change this from bold to regular. So I'm gonna add more leading. So I'm gonna bold this so as to make it different from items. So what I'm trying to do here is to help my readers. So I'm gonna choose this shade of yellow here. Let's see, shade of yellow. And move this up. Yeah, this is good. If I zoom out, you'll notice that people will find it difficult to know if the items are different. So I need to find a way to help my readers understand that they are different items. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to use color to separate them. I'll go to the Ceasar, change the color to, let me pick a color from here, and I'm going to move this down and I just see this shade of red. Alright, then I'm gonna copy it and hit Control C on my keyboard and hit OK. So let's see. You see, it's not visible, so we need to find a way to change it that it will be visible. So I'm going to just move this out a little and move this down a little. So, alright. So what I'm trying to do is I don't want to go outside of red because going outside of red will make the artwork too busy with colors. So I'm gonna copy this. Hit OK. And I'll move this down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer because I can hardly see the text. So I'm going to call this black. Okay, and I'll select the brush tool. Then I'm going to change this to black, dark red, excuse me. All right, and select the brush tool and make sure my flow is something around, let's say 15, and just going to brush like so, and I'll reduce the opacity like so. Alright, so I'll bring out the free transform, just to scale this like so, and you can even use the eraser tool to just take it out from the side like so. Now you see now my text is visible. Alright, so I'm going to zoom in. You know what, I still need to scale this to be smaller like so, and go in again. Just see that another shade of red. So I'm just going to come here and just push this out a little. I'm going to copy it, hit OK. Come here and V. Okay. Okay, so let's just move this above the curve layer. Now you see it's now visible. So I'm gonna come here, and since we're using colors to separate the items, so there's no need for us using the comma anymore. So I'm just gonna come here. I'm gonna go to the light folder, which is this. I mean the dots, sorry. So this the red one. I'm gonna hit the eraser tool, and I'm gonna take this one out. And for the yellow, I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay, so I'm gonna put the address and the website. Just gonna click, paste this, and I'll change the color to white and space white, white, white. So scale this down. I'll add space between them, like let's say 70. Right. So I'm just gonna move this down. Okay. So for this one, I still need to take out that space. Right. So let's move this out. So have this. So I want this to be at the center of my frame. So I'm going to scroll down and hold down Control and click on the background layer and click here to centralize it. And I'll do the same thing for the address. So I'm going to click here to make it be at the center. And so the last thing I'm going to do is to add noise. So I'm going to create a new layer with Alt and click on the new layer icon, and I'll call this noise. I'll change my blend mode to overlay, and I'll click on the fill with overlay neutral color 50% gray option, and I'll click OK. And I'll go to filter, noise, click on add noise. Now, so if this is the first time you're using this, your monochrome will have this. So you need to check the monochrome option, and I'm going to hit OK. So I'm going to reduce the opacity a little bit. Now somebody's wondering, why do we have to add the noise effect? So I always do this to make the project look more real. So I have this. So this is where we're going to start. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'm going to be posting more of tutorials like this for you guys to learn. And if you have not subscribed, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Remember to ring the bell so you will be notified when I post my tutorials. I'll see you guys again in the next one. Peace.